Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, iGaming world, shall I say. Welcome to iGaming Next Online. Today, we're looking at Kindred's Road to Zero. I have the absolute pleasure to be joined by Maris Catania, Head of Responsible Gambling and Research at Kindred, and Neil Banbury, General Manager UK at Kindred Group. Welcome both.
Hi there.
Cool. Good. Let's get straight into it. So I suppose one of all the talk has been about Kindred's journey to zero. So how did that sort of come about? What sort of instigated that? What was the epiphany moment from Kindred's point of view? Was it driven by the board, or was it somewhere else?
Yeah, so I think for us, sustainability has been a core part of our business model for a long time now, many years. Both for the sake of sustainability and believing that sustainable business is good business, but also in the sense of the way that we put the customer at the center of everything that we do. Our business is structured around the customer, and everything we're doing is to try to ensure we deliver a great customer experience. So it's sort of been part of our DNA all the way from the board through everyone in the organization, I think, for a long time. But obviously, we took a step then, big step really, to be public about the ambition, and I think that's been a really effective way for us to hopefully encourage collaboration and encourage others within the sort of stakeholder map to work with us to get to 0%. It's important for the industry to get to 0%, and not just for us to get there. But I think as well, it's been a great opportunity to bring some facts and evidence and reality to the debate around gambling and some of the issues that the industry does have. It's been very easy in the past for critics of the industry to talk about exploitative business models and how unsustainable the industry is, and I think ultimately our numbers show that that's not the case. But until that something was out there publicly, it's obviously been very hard to talk about our side of the debate and effectively talk about ways that we can improve and evolve as an industry. So I think it's sort of the confluence of a few things that have come together that really encouraged us to do it. And now that it's public, obviously we're as determined as ever to get to that 0%.
Sure. And Maris, you look after the sort of analytical side, the sort of quantitative side. Those initiatives, you've got several initiatives that come together. How do they sort of intertwine and work together? Can you explain a bit more about that?
I think the easiest approach to explain this is that we have three main focus areas, which really help. So we have the academic focus, the community, and the customer. When it comes to the academic focus, we base everything we do on research. So it's not what we think might be good, but we work with different researchers. We sponsor a lot of PhDs in order to understand gambling problems and how we can prevent it. Then, to join that part of the knowledge, we focus more on a community level, where we speak with treatment centers, where we speak with experts by experience, because these are truly the experts in the area. And certain initiatives, like, for example, GamBan, would be the endpoint that a customer may need if there's, for example, no national self-exclusion in the market. Products like Gambling Therapy app, something I came across recently, the web portal, Don't Bet Your Life on It. It's all stuff that can help, especially if the customer is no longer a customer, so we can provide some aftercare. But then combining both of those initiatives, those focus areas, into the customer approach. So instead of being reactive on it, being very proactive. So getting the information from academia, getting the information from experts by experience and treatment centers to provide a holistic approach and not wait for a customer to reach a certain level of harm to be approached. But as soon as there are signs, we can try to help a customer to regulate or to refrain from gambling further, which will help us in the long run diminish the harmful gambling revenue due to this approach.
And I assume with all these efforts to regulate against problem gambling, do you ever see any false positives? Is there anyone trying to cheat the system, so to speak? Is that why you've got so many of these different data points, I suppose, in place to counteract that?
As much as possible. I mean, if they try to cheat the system, it's quite there's over 25 variables, so it's quite difficult to do that. But what we tend to do is we tend to use a wider net. So it's okay to, detect someone who might just be gambling a bit more than usual because you got a bonus, for example, at work, rather than missing on someone. So we'd rather send an RG email to someone as an extra bit or call someone who maybe shouldn't have been called rather than missing out. Obviously, we constantly evaluate the system, we constantly upgrade it with academic information. But as well, when I mentioned, for example, experts by experience, we invite them over to our office and they sit down with us, they see what we're doing, and also they sit down with the team to better understand, because it's not just the detection that you need to keep in mind, it's also the intervention. What do you have to do to change that behavior? And in fact, part of our reporting nowadays is also showing what is the percentage of people that change their behavior once they're detected the first time, and trying to improve on that all the time.
And obviously, with all these measures in place, you have certain, I suppose, points along the journey that you need to meet. How are Kindred faring against those ambitions? Are you behind? Are you in front? Are you on par where you want to be?
Yeah, so we started obviously reporting the numbers earlier this year, and we shared what the numbers looked like for last year. And then when we published our first quarter results in 2021, we gave an update. So at the end of last year, for Q4, the percentage of our revenue that was coming from customers exhibiting high risk behaviours was at 4.2%. And that has come down to 3.9% in Q1, which is obviously positive in the sense it's heading in the right direction. But there's a lot more to do to get that to zero. We also report other categories of behavior. And I think one of the really encouraging things we saw in Q1 was for behavior that's we describe as social or low risk. That was at 89% of our revenue in Q4, and then it was up to 91.5% in Q1. So that's alongside the revenues growing. Q1 was a very successful quarter for Kindred, so encouraging for us to see that the business is growing and the sustainability of the revenues is also growing. There's things that we have on our roadmap in terms of actions and milestones that we see as key things to get us to the 0% in 2023. But also, it's a very open mind with which we're approaching this, in the sense that we're not pretending to have all of the answers and a defined path that will definitely get us there. We've got to learn a lot over the next couple of years to get there, and we also need to make sure we're cooperating and interacting with others that have critical roles to play in enabling 0% to be possible. So yeah, I think it's early days in the sense of us reporting on this externally, but so far the trends are positive. But there's clearly a lot of work still to do.
Yeah, and with COVID, obviously that came about, that seismic distraction. Is the ambition there to drive it no matter what? Even if we have another distraction, say like COVID, and it's always at the top of the agenda for Kindred. Is that right? Fair in saying?
Yeah, I don't think that this mission is conditional. It's at the top of the agenda, and it really helps the fact that we have a figure now, because we can have a goal where to be. But even for me, for example, when I compare myself to other RG managers, the conversations on harm minimization and reducing harmful play, it's much easier. And it's something that is not just shared by my team. It's also shared by all the team members. So we have different departments. It's a company goal, which makes a huge difference, and it makes my job easier as well, which is great.
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm just touching on that RG perspective. Obviously, Kindred operates in quite a few number of jurisdictions. How is that working across different jurisdictions? Are you finding it easy? Is it better in regulated markets than those that are about to be regulated? How's that working for you?
I think one of the limitations sometimes is the different responsible gambling tools that we have to offer. So, for example, you have countries like Estonia where you need to offer a spending limit, whereas all other countries you need to offer a deposit limit, which is more a technical thing. It would be better if it was all aligned, especially if you have, an RG team that's taking care of all of them. But apart from that, when you look into the detection system, the proactive system, we always went a bit above what the regulator would have asked us for. So it wouldn't make a huge difference in that case. Obviously, in certain markets, it's easier when it comes to affordability information, more accessibility. When we have local regulation, it's also easier in that respect for us. But overarching responsible gambling, we always try to aim as high as possible. So most of the time, we tend to do more than what a regulator is asking us to do.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose, Neil, one of the points on the website is it states that it's not just Kindred driving this forward themselves. It's much about the cooperation side of things. And how is that fared? Has that been quite easy to start off with? Has that proved its challenges? Is there different opportunities that are coming out from that as well?
Yes, it's a good question because ultimately there is no point in us getting to 0% by pushing problems elsewhere. As a whole, the industry needs to be getting to 0%, and I think that the critical thing there is that it does require cooperation. So it requires a lot of cooperation between operators, and I think you're seeing more and more of this happening. I think in the UK. The Betting and Gaming Council has been a really effective vehicle to bring the big operators together and find areas to align on and to create sort of harmonisation around higher standards. So I think that's one area, and I think there's more to do to explore the ways that single customer view is quite a big topic. There's obviously some challenges and some things that need to be worked through around data and sharing, etc. On that, but that can be an enabler. But I think as well, it's important that this isn't just seen as an operator initiative. Clearly, the operators can cooperate a lot together, but we need to see cooperation up and down the value chain. There's so much we could do working with banks and other payment providers, the gaming providers, the sort of the product side of things, marketing partners, affiliates, etc. So it's a whole ecosystem really that I think can unify behind a goal of 0%. Hopefully that's quite an easy thing for everyone to align behind, and ultimately we need to ensure that the way that the ecosystem works and how everything fits together really does enable us to get to the 0%. I think one good thing about the cooperation, and Maris has alluded to this, is for us, really important that we improve our ability to detect risk, and we're really encouraging and we want researchers to come and help us to improve that. And then that's information that obviously can be shared and made public. And then also, as Maris has said, we do work with people with lived experience, and there's opportunity to do more of that to improve the effectiveness. So many different areas to generate good cooperation around, I think. We have some of that, but clearly we need more and more as the time rolls on.
Yeah, and how has that been driven internally from a Kindred point of view? Is that with different departments? Are they aligned along the similar sort of way, or is some catching up with others? How's that faring?
Yeah, I think it's one of the most encouraging things, I think, is how we've seen a lot of alignment behind this goal internally. It's not so long ago, right, that you would have not necessarily battles between departments, but there was more conflict perhaps between the commercial areas of business and the compliance areas. And actually now what you see is there's significantly more harmony. Everyone is working towards the same goals. I work in the commercial teams. I'm responsible for growing our UK business, but we want to grow that business sustainably. And we want that all of the revenue to be derived from behaviour that's not harmful. So it's impacting so many different things along our along all the commercial processes around acquiring customers and retaining customers, and that I think has enabled other areas of the business to actually more easily get initiatives that they've perhaps been driving in the past in silo to commercials actually be just part of the way that we try and position ourselves towards the customer and ensure that we minimise harm as best we can.
And Maris, from your point of view, the responsible gaming side of it, the training and all an element and all that, how's that faring up in this to this regard as well?
I think training is very important, especially as Neil mentioned, this wasn't always so easy. So we used to have clashes between departments because there was never enough alignment, perhaps, to what we needed to achieve. So training is key. And we do have different levels of training, which I would always suggest for any company to do. So not to just have a one size fits all. So we would have like online learning for everyone, but also specifically to your needs when it comes to, for example, customer interaction. We would have different levels. And again, I mean, they are the best advocates for this, but we also work a lot with experts by experience or lived experience, and they come and tell us their story. So, for example, we've had Epic come to the office and explain how someone went from being a professional rugby player to a problem gambler, explain these little steps and what he went through. And that really helps to humanize the situation as well. Because sometimes you might have certain departments that might see a customer as a customer account number, whereas responsible gambling teams see a person. And as soon as you have that shift, you start seeing more buy-in into harm minimization. So it's just trying to push the agenda that, there should not be any exploitative gambling. There should be nothing that might hurt someone rather than just looking into the numbers aspect of things.
And with regards to sort of touching back on the false positives, are you concerned about any false positives in order to get 0% revenue from harmful gambling?
Hopefully we wouldn't have that, but as much as possible, we're also over-reporting in that perspective. So whereas, for example, researchers tend to use self-exclusion as a proxy measure for problem gambling, self-exclusion is only used as part of the revenue from harmful gambling that we're reporting. So we're including as well any revenue that's coming from customers who have confirmed addiction. We're also reporting that if someone is showing high risk behaviors. So as much as possible, we're taking the same approach of a safer approach, a wider approach. Better to over-report than to under-report, in my opinion.
Great, and just touching on advertising, I suppose, because we haven't done that yet. How does advertising play a role in this journey to zero, in your opinion, Neil? I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's got a crucial role to play because I think that it's really important that brands are positioning themselves in a responsible and a sustainable way. And I think you see that increasingly now. If you don't have to rewind too far to go back to a time where advertising was very aggressive and very shouty on TV. And then you just tag on the end of the advert when the fun stops. Whereas now you see a lot more promotion of safer gambling messages and behaviours, both on TV and around sports sponsorship, etc., etc. So I think that the way that brands are positioning themselves has evolved to a much better place. But we think about this through the whole process. It's impacting the way that we appraise acquisition spend. Which channels, which sources are sending players and that are sustainable, and which ones are perhaps sending players that are more skewed at the higher end of the risk spectrum. It impacts the way that we our CRM logic works, and that's obviously a really crucial part of the gambling operator's business. And like I say, it's sort of now really truly embedded in the way that the commercial teams and the marketing teams think. I think there's a shift within, certainly within Kindred, and I think you can see clear evidence of this shift within other operators as well, where that these businesses really and the brands really want to be positioned as sustainable entertainment, because that's ultimately what gambling is supposed to be, and for the vast majority of people, that's what it is. And I think that Part of this, from my perspective, is almost making sure that we change the way that marketing feeds into everything to ensure that that is how that's how we portray ourselves, and we do so much work behind the scenes then to ensure that that is then truly the case. So I think marketing's critical role in this, and I think you're starting to see positive signs on that front.
And I suppose one final question before we go. I mean, today's sessions have all been about sort of the link between iGaming and investment. Has the stock market sort of rewarded Kindred Group, for these initiatives that you're implementing? Have you seen a shift in that at all?
I think that generally what investors want to see, certainly the European investors, is businesses that are taking sustainability very seriously. Clearly, if there's ever cases where something has gone wrong and a customer has maybe spent a lot of money through harm, that's clearly no benefit to anyone, really. That's incredibly negative news for a PLC. And that's why there's so much focus on ensuring that doesn't happen. But for a business like Kindred, the big shareholders essentially are investment houses who have their own criteria around which stocks they can invest in. So for us, it's really important to make sure that we set ourselves a very high bar, and we stay operating at that bar, and ensure that our stock is available and as appealing to as many investors as possible. So I think you would like to think that ultimately like I say, that whole ecosystem that starts with the investors to some extent incentivizes and rewards getting to 0%.
Great. Thank you both. I think we've run out of time now. So some really insightful questions and answers there. So thank you very much for both your help, your time today, Maris, Neil. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.